yeah, we're gonna transition to our second guest here. Let's see.
Let's see
if he.
show.
What if he doesn't answer?
I hope so.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be embarrassing.
Yeah, well,
There
He is.
Okay,
now joining the show, we have former track/football star, Lakeland Chief, current writer, Scranton Times, one of the best. Lakeland class of 19. Looking for some help, Job? Looking for some help?
I'm not telling.
Yeah.
All right.
I told you.
Scranton Times.
Smart man.
Joby Fawcett joining the show now. How we doing, Job?
I'm doing well. Thanks for calling, guys. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be on the receiving end of an interview by such sports knowledge guys out of the Mid-Valley School District.
We appreciate you blowing smoke for us. We appreciate it.
Anytime, fellas.
How was Dream Game practice?
Well, Tom, you know how these things go. It is what it is.
Yeah.
A collection of seniors who probably would rather not be practicing in July, but no, it was good.
Yeah.
They actually worked pretty hard up there, and I always enjoy seeing kids who get an opportunity to play one final game, especially the kids who are going to be going off to college or going off into trade schools or jobs or whatever. They get a chance to kind of relive the high school football experience again and to do it and make some new friends along the way. So that's a pretty cool experience. But they look pretty good. They look pretty sharp.
County today or city?
I saw the city today, believe it or not,
Okay.
at Lackawanna Trail High School because, as you know, in our infinite wisdom with the Lackawanna Football Conference, we have placed Lackawanna Trail in the city roster.
Right.
Wait,
right.
what?
I'm still confused by all that.
Oh,
my
wow.
kids explained to me when they came down last week for equipment that Delaware Valley was coaching them, and I asked, okay, well, who's coaching this city? And they said Lackawanna Trail, and it took me probably about 35 seconds before I could even speak to try to figure that one out.
How
But
are they a city?
Well, the thing about it is, Tommy, is here's what happens, as is always the case, and you and I talk about this a lot during the course of a regular high school season. We often take what we see in a microcosm. So 1 year or 2 years, maybe it was, the city really overmatched the county, and it was understandable because Scranton Prep and Delaware Valley, they were all on the city team, and the Scranton and West Scranton. So all the bigger schools had landed on the city roster, and the smaller schools were on the county roster. So they kind of tried to even that up a little bit and put a couple of big schools on the county and a couple of smaller schools on the city, and that's how we ended up where we are today with Lackawanna Trail and Susquehanna playing on the city roster.
yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense when you explain it like that.
Right.
So the most county schools
Yes.
we put on the city roster.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Nice.
Which ends up being, as a byproduct, several of the players selected from those schools don't play because they don't like to have to drive down to Scranton.
an hour to drive into the city for practice.
Right. So you can never win. Tommy, I've told you this 1,000 times. You never win no matter what decision you make.
You got it. Absolutely. No good deed goes unpunished.
That's correct.
So we were calling because of the hot topic that came out of the news yesterday afternoon.
And that's what beach I'm going to next week?
Yes. Which is? Which one are you going to?
No, I'm not telling that.
Smart man.
We'll show up. But the NIL issue with the PIAA. So were you? I know there are many times you're on the state board of director meeting calls. Were you on this one in particular, or did you get the news after the meeting was over?
This one wasn't a Zoom one, Tommy, so I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't able to be there live, so I had to, like everybody else, had to see it on the wire, and then, we do our part after we get what happens at the meeting. So, a couple of things. Boy, I wish we had NIL when I played. That being said, it's a very, very interesting topic because I think I said a couple of months ago, actually it may have been a year ago, when I found out that this was going to happen on the collegiate level, that the NIL was going to come through and the NCAA was going to lose that ability to keep the athletes from cashing in on the use of their likeness or images. And I said, well, I want to really see how it's going to work on the collegiate level. And already it's been a somewhat of a disaster at that level.
Yeah.
And then I knew, as is always the case, it always trickles down into the high school level. And look, we are in a much different era of athletics at every level now. Okay, you're seeing with the big conference football and basketball leagues and everything dissolving and forming these super conferences, and it really comes down to the financial end of it. And I want to say this too, Tommy, that and Matt and guys, what has happened here is that the shutdown of the 2020 sports season and the all the restrictions that were put on post the COVID infections opened up a lot of eyes to people and saying, hey, this could go bust. We better take this while we've got it. And there's a lot of shrewd lawyers out there, I'm going to tell you. And I knew it was going to happen. I don't know. I still haven't formulated an opinion on this because I don't want to get to that point just yet, because I want to try to stay as neutral as I can.
Yep.
But it's going to certainly be interesting, to say the least, to see how schools handle it.
Right.
Because I don't know I don't even know at this point if you have a right to police it.
Yes. I said that a little bit earlier. Right. Because they're keeping our, and when I say our, the school's name, image, and likeness out of the kids' business. So then it does, it makes it almost a completely private relationship with whoever they're going to enter a partnership with, like you said, and where are we even able to govern that, other than it, affecting, how does that relationship affect their potential eligibility for our programs? It's crazy.
I want to look at it. I'm trying to look at it as objectively as I can, and it almost is like into your star quarterback getting a part-time job. You can't tell them that they can't get a part-time job just because they're the star quarterback in the Valley. So it's interesting to see, if that's how we're going to interpret this, as being, as long as they're not wearing your uniform and they're not saying they're the star quarterback at Mid-Valley in any kind of advertisement or any kind of commercial or any kind of billboard. I think that's why the PIAA has kind of put this out there, because as I told you many times over during the course of anything that goes on with the PIAA, and you know this a little bit by being involved with the LIAA, most of your rulings are going to be liked by half and they're going to be disliked by the other half. But the other part of the equation is nobody wants to get sued. And I have told you this a dozen times, if not 1,000 times, when we get to the private versus public debate, which is often heated as well, I always start our conversations with, Tommy, the PIAA is not going to go through a lawsuit. It's just not.
Right.
And I think the PIAA has a lot of lawyers that it consults. It consulted a bit. The PIAA didn't just get into this haphazardly and decide one day, we're going to let NILs reign free in the state. It did its due diligence. It went through and saw how the policies were in New York and New Jersey and these neighboring states, Ohio or whatever, that allow it. And, it's got some lawyers telling it what it can and cannot do. And I think the biggest message that the PIAA got was, I don't think it's going to be able to stop it anyway.
Right.
It's a runaway train.
Joe, my question for you is, do you see the new NIL affecting transferring? Like guys trying to transfer to different schools now to kind of maybe get their name out there a little bit more, so maybe they get an NIL deal?
One of the worries that I've always had at the high school level concerning transfers, I'm not against kids or parents trying to find a better situation if they so deem it necessary in terms of academics. Athletics I've always been against, but that's because I played at a public school. And I just think when you're playing against private schools, there is a competitive imbalance there. But nevertheless, this is America, and you have the right to choose where you want to go, what you want to do. So I don't exactly know the impact of this NIL situation in terms of there's some language in the non-permissible NIL where it says third-party involvement. I don't know exactly how if they define that clearly enough for me. I don't know. You know, I'm just a lowly Lafayette graduate. I don't speak legal jargon. So
you're smarter than the three of us.
Yes.
Well, so I don't. When it comes to transferring, the thing that would raise some flags for me is if a very talented young player in the junior high level is kind of wooed to another school district by, let's say, a business or a restaurant, or to say, hey, listen, it becomes high school recruiting, but not by the coaching staffs. It becomes, listen, we'd like to have you do a commercial for us, but hey, listen, I'd rather you go to this school than that school.
Absolutely, right.
And that could become a problem. But again, the PIAA still does have, and I know people don't understand this to the extent that they do have it, that the transfer rules are still in place. They do have these very strict guidelines that you have to follow. If you transfer after your 10th grade year, you got to miss the postseason for a year. You have to sit 21 days. Those sorts in season, those sorts of things. So they do have some defense mechanisms to still discourage you from transferring, but with the allure of some sort of NIL deal, I don't know how that's going to change that landscape either.
Right.
That's a good point. Individually, if I'm getting recruited to a different school for an NIL deal, I'll miss the postseason. That's fine.
That dollar amount might be worth the sit out.
Especially if you're only going to miss the postseason for one of your 2 or 3 remaining years. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yep.
I do think kids. And I do. One thing I will point out about the PIAA that I did like from what I heard and gathered from this report is it's really going to be active in educating schools and parents on the do's and don'ts of NIL. I think that's an important component because I naturally everyone's initial reaction is to say, "Oh, this is terrible for high school sports. We can't have this. We can't have Johnny getting paid to do a commercial, and then what if the coach benches him?" Those sorts of things. There's always the immediate overreaction that this is so bad. Maybe it is bad. We don't know yet, but I think the PIAA is looking at it as a situation where it is something that it's not going to be able to contain or stop or control.
Right. It was happening sooner or later.
Right. So at the very least, let's get ahead of it. And then let's educate parents, families, schools, and kids so that they're doing the right things and not, necessarily getting themselves into some sort of trouble with eligibility in terms of playing at a different school or transferring and that sort of thing. Just keep people informed of what they have to be on the lookout for. Because, again, a lot of this is going to be generated. There's going to be NIL people reaching out to athletes.
Oh, absolutely.
I guarantee you that.
For sure.
Yeah. How if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. How big of an impact do you think it will be for us here locally, though? To me, I feel like this is not that we're we're not going to see it at all, but I feel like this is obviously a bigger issue in other areas of the state with some of
the Philly, Allentown area, the more
bigger populated, but where most of our bigger athletes come out of, in Pennsylvania sports. Yep. Like, how do you think that compares to our area? Okay,
well, again, our natural reaction is to say that we're 5 years behind the curve anyway.
Right.
In everything that we do in Northeast Pennsylvania. However, what I will say is we've never experienced anything like this before, so we really don't have any evidence or anything to base how it's going to happen or play out on. We have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of going into this blind. Our immediate perception of it is, oh, the quarterback at school A is going to get a $10,000 NIL deal. Do I think that's going to happen? No. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, we often look at the bigger picture and see what's happening on the collegiate level and think that immediately is going to happen to the best high school football player, the best high school basketball player, or the best high school track kid's going to get a shoe deal or something. I mean, do I think that's going to be the case? I don't know.
Right.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, and again, I don't want to formulate an opinion like you said, but I would be hard pressed to believe if Colin Kravitz from North Pocono got a shoe deal that you would want to deny that kid the ability to make money.
Right.
Absolutely.
Based upon his abilities.
Yeah.
Based upon his abilities.
Yeah, and that
Now,
that I guess goes back, not to interrupt you, but that goes back to the old college argument the same way, where the college track kid wasn't allowed to do it prior to all of this. However, the kid in the IT department that came up with a program during a project, and
he could make money.
Yeah, it can get bought out by Microsoft, and and there was no issue.
Right. And the other thing, and not that I'm advocating for anybody getting a shoe deal, is
give it to the kid.
I think high school sports is still a little bit of a weird dynamic because I think we're going to start to see it even on the collegiate level. You guys are pretty big college fans. I know, Tommy, you're a big Indiana fan.
That's right.
I think what it puts a pressure on, and I had to do some counseling with some coaches today over the phone, it's going to put a lot of pressure on coaches to say, hey, if so-and-so's got an NIL deal and he gets beat out for a position, well, I'd be hard-pressed to believe that coach is going to keep that kid off the court or out of the field.
Well, that's a great point, too.
Right.
So to me, that's got to be a concern if you're a local athletic director or a coach. I mean, we're already dealing with the height of the helicopter situation that we're dealing with,
Right.
So I think that only even gets more magnified if we start seeing NIL deals. But again, when we say NIL deals, our immediate perception is what we see on the national scale. We see kids at Texas A&M getting $10,000 guaranteed if they play offensive line.
Yeah.
They eat at a steakhouse or whatever once a week.
Right.
Right. Are we going to see that on the high school level? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Joe, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
You've covered a lot of athletes over your career. Is there anyone that kind of popped up to your head that you kind of said, wow, he missed a great opportunity for this?
Well, I think you could start.
Other than you. Other than you.
Listen, guys, I know you guys are much too young to remember when I played, but I really could have gotten a heck of a Head and Shoulders deal.
I've seen that.
Business in the front, party in the back, baby.
Yeah, Troy Polamalu's made a fortune off Head and Shoulders, and I couldn't get a dime. But no, Jerry McNamara, of course.
Okay.
For him, right off the bat, I mean, Donnie Collins did a great job. Jerry wouldn't have had to work again.
No.
If
before he enrolled at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Before that, yeah. I mean, he was a phenom on the high school level. I mean, we don't often have athletes in our area. I mean, we occasionally where fans would buy T-shirts with
to that level,
kids
right?
Name and number, right? So, but then it just took off at Syracuse, and if he had ever gotten an NIL deal back then, he would never have had to work again.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? He would have been certainly well off. I think if you put in a perspective that would be in a tricky spot, that I think that would be someone that somebody like a Jake McCarthy who everybody knew was going to Max Kranick played in the major leagues. These kids who had the real potential to be professional athletes at some point of their postgraduate career. I think those kids could have really made some money at the high school level using their images.
Yeah.
And certainly there was one right now, London Montgomery. How could he not? How could he not have taken advantage of this? I mean, everybody recognizes him and knows him, and a lot of times we don't really understand that. But if you're able to, as a high school athlete, go to a restaurant and everybody knows who you are when you walk in, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is post it that you were there on social media.
And then there you go. You did your part.
Right.
Well, listen.
You know?
Here's the other part of the equation that we haven't even discussed yet, guys. Is there is a component in there, if you looked, about social media.
Uh-huh.
There are NIL deals where athletes, all they have to do is have a presence on a social media page. They can be paid for that.
Right.
Wow.
So if you look, yourself, Tommy, we talk about this a lot. A lot of the athletes today
I'm getting an NIL deal.
are their own PR people anyway.
Right. Yep.
So, you start up a website or a social media page, or you have a good company backing, that's an NIL deal. You know?
Yeah. I was, Job, I was talking to Tommy a little earlier, but based on that, what you were just saying, like at some point I feel like, local businesses are going to get keen on the fact that, high school athletes, a lot of them, like not even the ones that you know of, just have a big presence on social media with all the different platforms. And at some point, I think we see it with, certain I'm just going to say, like, pages that are popping up, like kids like to see, kids that share things on social media, other kids will share it, and that's how things get traction like a snowball. Or if you as a parent, see your kid, whatever, on the local restaurant commercial, you're going to share it, and then, oh, that's, so-and-so. And, like, that's how this stuff gets around. And I don't even think it needs to be, kids to the caliber of London Montgomery. I don't think it needs to be that deep. Again, I think it's underestimated how big like kids' presence are on these apps, and how much parents seeing their kids on these apps will kind of get the snowball effect for these businesses. And I think at some point they'll figure it out, that it'll get more
Business to them.
It'll get more business to them just by letting this high school kid. And I don't think it has to do with the school. The school you play for or the sport you play. Obviously, that'll help, and the people that could do that will be a little better off for trying to take advantage of it. But I think even less talented or less not talented, but
there's a market for the
and
lesser known faces.
At some point,
too.
the businesses will figure it out. I think.
Right.
Well, businesses always figure things out.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, I think the one thing about high school athletes, and again, we're just starting, so we don't know exactly what this is going to be 5 years down the road. We just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I would say, high school athletes also have a very short shelf life.
Yes.
So we'll see what they may not know that yet because you're living in the moment. But you know what I mean by that? By when we graduate, we tend to forget that we are forgotten pretty quickly.
Yeah, Matt Tanner's already very washed up.
Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily know if Matt Tanner's washed up.
Matt
a guy
is.
like me, 30 years down the road. No, but it's and again, we'll have to see how it all plays out. My initial reaction is I think the PIAA and I don't often criticize the PIAA as often as everybody else does because I have to work with those people. But I just think that the PIAA right now sees a situation that it's trying to get ahead of, and it's not going to be able to stop. You're going to be in the minority if you're going to try to restrict these kids from making money off their name, and you're probably opening up yourself to a lawsuit that you don't want to.
Absolutely. I think you're going to lose a lot of athletes too if you didn't open up the door. A lot of guys are going to start leaving Pennsylvania to an extent if they can't get their name and likeness and go to a neighboring state that they can go and make that money,
That's correct. And I think that there was some threats of that, some real possibilities of that in the Pittsburgh and the Philadelphia area. So they have to address this now. And listen, the landscape of high school athletics is going to be much different 5 years from now, from this day.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me when I tell you, Tommy Nowakowski, you know what I'm saying about.
Yep.
This is going to be a very, very interesting and case study in where we're headed in scholastic sports moving forward, for sure.
I agree.
if this podcast is still alive in 5 years, we might have to have you back on to revisit it, Joe.
Well, I won't be available to be a guest in 5 years, but certainly you guys.
Sure you will.
You guys,
Come on.
You guys are real go-getters and energetic. So and you got a heck of a following. So I think you'll be okay.
Appreciate that, Joe.
At least
You're the
someone
best.
thinks so. Yeah.
Spartan Nation loves you guys.
True. That's accurate, I guess.
There you go. All right. Well, I certainly appreciate your time there, pal.
Hey, listen, you, Tommy, I told you I make time for you. Now, listen, I got to go churn out 3 stories in the next 3 hours. So.
We're cutting into deadline time.
If there's anybody that can do it, it's you, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you caught me in transition here where I was still driving home from practice, so you
right.
lucked out because now I got to get myself a nice green tea and get the computer cranking.
There we go.
Whatever stories you throw out, I'll share on social media tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah, we got you, bud.
Yeah, we got you. 3 from us.
All right, you guys are the best. And listen, when I go to visit Mid Valley, I want to make sure you, Tommy Nowakowski, are there with your bucket hat on, protecting yourself from the sun.
That's right.
And we'll share some stories on the sideline. Okay?
You got it.
He doesn't
Absolutely.
leave home without it.
But listen, never mind NIL deals at Mid Valley. You guys are getting the state-of-the-art facility over there. Tommy Nowakowski finally opened up some of that communion money. You're going to have a real track and an artificial field. It's unbelievable.
Job, if they took my communion money, I wouldn't even be able to put tape on the track.
Okay, well, I don't know. That's not what I heard. Jimmy DePoti does your accounting at Mid Valley.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Listen, it was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks
Same
for
here.
having me
Thanks.
on.
You got it. Thanks for coming
Joe,
on,
for the
Joe.
call, Joe.
Much continued success to you guys. All right, be
You
good.
too. Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
you too. Say it.
Right.
What? What an interview. What an interview.